So what y'all are about to see is the original intro for this video, because originally this was going to be a fun little TBR blog, right? Just talk about the books I'm reading, get through a couple of them because it was taking me a while, etc., etc. I've read 2 books, right? I would like to read more. Um, and it quickly devolved into, I don't know what I'm reading, but it's bad. So that's what this video is. I hope you're all having a good day, because I'm not. This is a bad book. I have since DNF'd it and switched to a different book. But yeah, so enjoy my innocence in the next couple of clips before I found out how bad this was. Hey y'all, welcome in. I am trying to catch up on my TBR for this month because in July I'm not gonna really have time to read a lot. So I'm gonna maybe go through 2 or 3 books with this video. It's not gonna be like, I'm not gonna do like a review. Well, okay, I'm not gonna do like a huge review of these books just because I'll talk about them later. And also, I don't know, this is more for me to get through my TBR and motivate me. So I think first I'm gonna start with A God in the Shed, which is on rental from my library, and it's due back in about 8 days. So I think I should be able to finish it. I have about 2 hours before I have to go to work. So I'm hoping I can read for maybe about 45 minutes and just get into it, you know? I do in fact know better than to read a horror book right before I go to bed later though, so we'll see how far I get. But yeah. Maybe just get a little cup of tea, maybe read your book with me. I don't know. I'm not sure how this video is gonna turn out. So, yeah. Anyway, that's my Saturday. So about 20% through the book. I'm not sure if I really like it. It's like taking a while to manifest anything, but I don't know. And it's not super clear to me because there's multiple different people's perspectives. It's not clear to me on those chapters whether all the information being given is from their perspective or a more like omniscient narrator, because there's stuff that's being said that like then doesn't seem to fit completely in with the rest of the chapter, and I don't know if that's just like an intentional buildup of like weird spooky stuff or what. So anyway, I have to go to work now, but yeah. So I'm back from my coffee and I'm about 42% through, and I don't think I like this book. I'm gonna try and finish it, but I'm so close to DNFing this. It's like, it's a horror book, right? Nothing has been creepy. Like, I haven't been creeped out. I haven't had my adrenaline running. Nothing. Like, there's been things that he's described in a gory way, but nothing's been like, there's no creeping dread building up. Like, I feel like I've already connected all the dots that I need to. I'm like, I don't even know if I have to finish the book to know how it ends. And I heard there's a second one of these. Like, this isn't standalone, and I'm kind of mad about it, not gonna lie. So, we'll see. He like totally over explains things constantly, and I'm like, dude, you don't have to put a comma in every single sentence. There's this one sentence here, I'll just show you. His tone had the edge of a man with nearly 2 decades of dealing with the dead, for science and for the occult. And I'm like, you could have just ended at the dead. That would have been a way better, more succinct sentence. I just want to know who's his editor, and if he didn't have one, why? Like, and if he did, actually, it would be better if he didn't have an editor, because if he did have an editor and all of these made it through, what do you even like? What's the point? Why even have an editor? Like, or other option, was this book even worse beforehand? Oh, I don't know where to start with this book. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. No, I am mad. I lied. Hi guys, welcome in. We're in a slightly different location. That's because the lighting is not cooperating in my usual location. It is pretty overcast today. It has been raining and storming on and off all day. We had both tornado and thunderstorm warnings, and there was lightning. And last night, the thunder and lightning was literally right above our heads. So I am in the light for once. I'm not burning or melting yet, but we'll see what happens. And I could not think of anything else to do this week except for complain about this stupid book that I read, because what else do we love to hear about than stupid books that people read so that y'all don't have to, right? So this month I posted a what I'm gonna read, a TBR for June. And on that TBR was a book that I had just gotten from the library and I was very excited about. And it was called A God in the Shed. And it was supposed to be a horror thriller type of book, creepy paranormal fiction, that kind of thing. And it had been nominated by Barnes and Noble back in 2017 or 2018 for an award. And a lot of people were talking about it. Maybe not as many as like, I don't know. Y'all might not recognize it, but enough people were talking about it on the TikTok, that I was like, oh, I'll give it a chance. I was like, surely
the mishaps that we have with TikTok recommendations only exist within the YA fantasy romance section, and other book sections are fine, right?
Because there's not going to be like a weird romance. I mean, there might be a weird romance, but anyway, I was hopeful. I had not yet been betrayed by the horror book TikTok girlies. I was betrayed with this one. I was absolutely stabbed in the back. This book, when I say this book doesn't even constitute as a horror book, I am not lying, okay? I got 74% through according to my Kindle before I gave up and I just stopped. And that was when I almost DNF'd it at 40%. And I was like, no, surely, maybe I just want to know how it ends. I want to see if it gets better. It doesn't get better. Okay? So I'm just going to read y'all what I put in my little review that I posted when I DNF'd this morning. And I started reading a different book that's much better. I said, it doesn't even qualify as a horror book. The multiple perspectives detract from the story. Oh, yeah. So this book has multiple perspectives, right? That normally would be fine if it's done appropriately, if it's done well. And the thing about a horror, mystery, paranormal thriller book is that you want there to be some mystery. You want there to be something that leaves your readers wanting to read more, to find out what's going on. Well, he has not one, not two, not three, not four perspectives, but like 8. I stopped counting at a certain point, because every character that has even mild significance of any kind, side characters, any kind, is given at least one chapter of a perspective. And for why? And for what? Why are we here? There were so many chapters that should have just been ripped out by his editor, and they just weren't, for no, if it doesn't further the story and it also doesn't further the horror aspect, why is it there? Why did you write it? There's a bit where literally the whole thing is just someone's mother watching the person who had the previous chapter driving away, and then turning around to see a skinned cat. Oh yeah, spoiler alert, skinned cat. There's animal abuse in this book, but it's a horror book, okay? We know there's gonna be something, right? So let me backtrack for a second and tell you what the premise of this is. Basically, the old gods aren't dead, right? And we're not talking about Norse. We're talking about nature, Cthulhu-esque, I can't remember the author's name. He has a quote from, oh my gosh, the guy who wrote Cthulhu. H.P. Lovecraft. It's like a Lovecraftian ancient god thing, right? And it's evil, obviously. But it becomes evil from interacting with like some 12-year-old boys, which like
Yeah, me too. You're not special.
anyway, I just and basically this god has been living in the woods outside of this town. I got the impression this town is in New England. I think everyone has names that makes me think that this could have also just been like in Massachusetts. This could have just been the Pilgrims. Like it sounds like these people haven't left since 1500 or 1600 when they came over, right? And it's all these old families that live there. And basically, there's this god, and he's gonna come kill you, right? Unless any of y'all play Mario, you know the ghosts when if you look at them it doesn't move, and if you look away it moves. Yeah, that's what it does. And that's because in the first chapter it's revealed to us, literally told to us at the very beginning, that this god thing ends up playing a game with the 12-year-old boys. The 12-year-old boys play a game where if you're looking at the person who's it can't move. If you look away, it can get you. It's basically statue, right? It's the reverse of statues. And the god has really weird rules, and so it latches onto this as a rule. And so for the rest of the book, that's what stops it, is if something's looking at it. So you open the first 2 chapters, and they're dealing with the discovery of a mass murder, a serial killer who has been terrorizing the town for 20 years, right? Okay, you're following me? Cool. That's interesting. Cool. You open it, you find out. Listen, I watched Criminal Minds. This is interesting to me. And you find out that basically all these people who have been going missing, they've been getting stored in a refrigerator, and then their eyes have been plucked out, put on a stick, and put in front of this cave, right? And the people are all like, oh, why is he doing that? And the reader is like, girl, why do you think he's doing that? The first chapter told us, okay. Anyway, and so that opens up pretty interestingly with the serial killer, and this town's been terrorized for 20 years to the point where they're all kind of in the resigned acceptance that like some of them just aren't gonna survive, right? They all just think they're gonna be next. Pretty much every character has had a wife, a mother, a father, a child, someone murdered by this thing. However, the serial killer doesn't kill anyone under 30 usually, so you're fine, I guess. I guess he doesn't like killing kids, which, like, when you find out why he's doing it, you're like, fine, whatever, that's fine. You had some morals, I guess. Anyway, and so the rest of the book is just them trying to combat this thing. But, like, I got 70% through, and nothing was happening. Nothing was happening. Nothing moved. The chief inspector, who I thought was going to be the main perspective for the most of the book, which he's partially, but not really. I thought he was going to be the main character. He like spends most of his time wandering around and threatening different people. His son seems to be the more productive of the two of them, and that's where it's like he's a teenager. This could have easily been a YA with just him as the main character and this other girl, because those are the two that are actually doing things in this entire story. And every adult perspective that we get already has all the information. There's no mystery. You find out about cults within the first chapter. You find out about ritual, like magic and stuff from these people in the 3rd chapter. You find out about like death magic and necromancy and stuff is happening with the morgue guy, the mortician. That's just common knowledge. So what is the mystery here? What is the mystery here? The only mystery is that the people cannot find the god. The god has escaped because they caught the serial killer, and so there's no more eyes out there to stop him from leaving the cave. So the god escapes. That's the only mystery for most of this book, right? And then they reveal things that I wasn't even wondering about. They reveal suddenly, this is going to be spoilery as all get out. If you want to read this book, don't watch this video, but just don't read the book. They reveal things that I wasn't even wondering about, right? So they reveal that the chief inspector had another son, right? Well, that's not only a surprise to us, but it's a surprise to his child, his son, right? His son, who was not a literal newborn when his mother left with his brother. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, how and why? What was the motive of him not knowing he had a brother? It was like the Parent Trap, but worse. Like, I love a good Parent Trap. This was bad. This was bad. This was a bad Parent Trap, right?
We're in the bad place.
But yeah, so every twist going on is obvious. And also because he spends so much time on so many different characters and not progressing the plot, you don't get attached emotionally to any of them. And so I do not care when they get murdered, right? I do not care when she loses her mother. I'm not afraid when this teenage girl goes and literally like vibes with the god and is like hanging out, right? I'm like, I don't know. And also, like, I know that New England and the East Coast in general, the more New England side, can be really like closed off and weird and pretentious and kind of hold back. But the amount of like flack one of his main characters gets just for not being from the town and for her parents being like agnostic hippies, I'm like, have you been to New England? Like all of Massachusetts is atheist. Like it's not, they don't care, right? Like if you've been to any seaside town, there's gonna be a weird hippie. That's just how it is. Like it was such a weird anachronistic like thing to have in it when this book was supposed to be set in our time with our technology and everything. But then, like, basically, this man doesn't know how kids actually behave, and so he wrote a weird bullying trope that would have only worked in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, probably. I don't know, I was a child then. But they wouldn't work now. So, unless he explicitly said, hey, this is set in the 90s, which he did not, it's weird. Plus, there was the internet, so it wasn't the 90s. I know the internet was invented in the 90s, but they have like laptops, flake phones, and like easy travel and all this stuff. So, like, you can't tell me this isn't at least 2010, right? So, none of the characters matter. I don't care about them. They like basically the god, if it's someone that he interacted with who had a grandfather that lived there, he knows the grandfather and he's like, oh, it's the same person, and they're like, no, I'm his granddaughter, and he's like, oh, you have different iterations, that's weird. But like there was just no mystery. Like this book literally, so every single character is not fazed by anything horror related in this entire book. And so it's to the point where you have to, the horror has to be manufactured outside of the people being affected by the horror, and that just doesn't make any sense, and he's not a skilled enough writer to do it, frankly. He clearly was trying to do some sort of, ooh, people are actually the real evil, like look at how like normalized they are to like the horrors of humanity, and I'm like, I've read good books who did that. You are not one of them. This is bad, right? Okay, like give me my little soda, because I enjoyed Tender as the Flesh, the book about ethical cannibalism societies and how they discuss all of that, right? It's literally just a meat instruction book. It's literally like a butcher's instruction book for humans. Okay, that's what that book is, right? That book has long periods of time where it's not like jumping out horror at you, but it's a creeping horror, and the horror is the humans all along. Like that's the horror, is the humanity, right? I've read books that have done that. Clearly, this did not do it well at all. I think this is maybe his second book, so maybe he gets better. But then I was looking online and I found out that this is not a standalone horror book. No, there's at least a second one. The way that I want to know how it ends, but I also know that if I finish this one, I'm gonna have to read the second one to even know how it ends. And then I've also heard this not that good, and like I just don't care about anything else except for how it ends. I could just skip to the last chapter. Oh, I'm reading something else. I'm reading Uprooted, which I think is by, I don't remember her, Naomi Novak. I'm reading Uprooted by Naomi Novak, which is a wildly different genre. It's like a fantasy romance. It's more fantasy leading into romance. It's a weird romance. It's also like, I think it's based in like Slavic mythology too. Although it has elements of Beauty and the Beast, which I find really interesting. And that book has some creepy moments, and that's doing better at terrifying me than this horror book is. Like, I don't know. And another thing about the characters, right? They make the stupidest decisions just for the plot. I get the teenagers making stupid decisions. I get the kids making stupid decisions. But the adults behave like they don't have the information that they so clearly have. And they make stupid decisions just so he can get to where he wants to be in his book. And I'm like, guys, you could have done this better if you had just not told us that they know everything. And like I was sitting there and I literally came up with like a better way that he could have written this book. And I'm like, if I can come up with a better way for you to have written a book, then your book was bad, because I am not that good of a writer. I am a mediocre, basic level newbie writer. Like, and if I can come up with a better way that would have been more intriguing, you have a problem, okay? Okay, when you, like, did he have an editor? Because most of his prose was just flat. Like, it didn't, like, sometimes if I don't care about the characters, the prose can travel. I can travel with the prose because it's a good, it's a vibe, it's a thing, right? Okay? Yeah. That's how I got through Yellowface by Kwong, right? I hated the main character, loved the book, right? Okay? Yeah? Following me? His prose is nothing to gawk at. Like, it's just bad. Like, it's mediocre. It's not like horrible, but it's not enough when his characters aren't following, and the premise of the story weren't enough to propel me forward to find out what's going on, because I don't even know what I'm supposed to still be wondering about. I don't know if it's just a matter of I've seen these tricks before, I know where you're gonna go, or it's a matter of he was way too obvious. But either way, I was just predicting things way too soon, okay? Like the whole thing with him having an extra son. They show a picture of the dude with a mysterious younger boy and his wife, and it's an aged photo, and his son finds it in the attic in the box of stuff that his mom left behind when she left. Immediately I went, oh, he has a secret son. Like, what? And then they don't reveal that for like 40 more percent of the book, like 100 pages, right? And meanwhile, they have multiple humans like committing ritualistic murder to do different things for different intentions. I guess that's the one thing we don't know, is we don't know everyone's intentions. Some people want to use the god to like grant them a wish, because if you basically, it's like a djinn. Is it like a djinn? That's such a stupid idea. Anyway, aside. Basically, if you trap it with looking at it or with a camera, as this one girl does, and it's like, free me, let me out, please, I'm begging you. And it'll give you something if you free it. And so, like, 20 years before, someone else had done the same stupid thing. Like, it's definitely clear that the different perspectives are supposed to keep us hopping around so that we can't connect all the dots. But the perspectives actually allowed me to connect all the dots because there was too many different people going on. And I just, he writes sentences like he has a word quota that he has to throw in there. His sentences are hardly ever short, and so there's no tension with the different levels of sentences. Like, you know how if you write one sentence and it's really long and you do it well, this is if you do it well, it can make you feel out of breath, right? And then you stop it with another sentence that's really short. They do that a lot in YA, in like romances and stuff, like, oh, and his eyes and da da da, and his hair, and he smiled at me, and how he went, and oh, right, that thing. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. He could do that with horror. Like, horror and love are opposite sides of the same coin, besties. That's why I love me some good the Magnus Archives, because horror and love can so easily bleed into each other, and I love that, but he doesn't use that at all. I don't know if he needed like 8 more rounds of editing before this book was published. I'm so tired of this book. I'm done with it. I'm returning it to the library. Anyway, I should have known when I didn't have to wait that long. It was like a week from when I put a hold on it to when I got it. I should have known when I didn't have to wait that long. So anyway, I have some other books I'm gonna read instead. My TBR, I'm gonna switch a different book out. Also, I realized I put Britain, like the history of violence, on my TBR, and then I realized it's 1,000 pages. So that's gonna take me longer to read. So that's not on my TBR for June, but I do have it. I have started reading it, but I also know no one else is gonna be looking for it, so I'll have time to read it. I even had a dream about that book, and it wasn't even that scary. So like, If my brain can't work with the information you're giving me, it's not good enough. But oh man, I don't know. If anyone read this and they can just tell me what the ending is, I would love you forever. Because I'm like I have that curiosity of like watching a train wreck and wondering who survives. But I'm not gonna stick around for the whole thing. I'll just tune into the news later, you know what I mean? So I just oh, here's the poorly written horror books.